Hey, welcome everybody to Trend Talks BizSec. This is episode 46. I'm one of your hosts, Jon Clay, VP of Threat Intelligence at Trend Micro. Joining me again is Greg Young, VP of Cybersecurity at Trend. Hey, Greg, I think this week we're going to talk about everybody's favorite conference now, apparently, is Black Hat.
Yes. Do people have favorite conferences? Or
I don't know, but it's kind of funny because I 29 years at Trend, and I can't remember if I ever went to Black Hat, to be honest. Everybody was like, you've never been? And I was like, well, I could have gone 25 years ago when it first started, because I think it was its 25th anniversary.
Right.
When it was just this tiny little conference, and I was mostly doing booth duty and stuff. But it's had to be at least 15 years since I've been there. So we'll talk a little bit about my experience at Black Hat. But favorite conferences, right? I mean, RSA, Black Hat seem to be the two biggies these days, right?
Yeah, and they're almost becoming indistinguishable in a lot of ways. So it's one's west and one's east. So.
Yeah, I don't know about East being Vegas versus San Fran. They're both in the Pacific time zone.
Yeah.
Pseudo East, I guess, is what you want to say, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Flying into Vegas on Monday last week, my flight was delayed because they had a ground stop in Vegas because I guess there's been fires going on all over the place, and so the smoke was causing issues for planes getting in. So I'm flying in, I'm in an exit row window, and I'm looking out my window, Greg, and it's just a brown freaking haze, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be inside of that. But with 106 degrees in Vegas every day, I ended up staying inside most of the time. But that was an interesting one coming in.
Yeah, well, historically they held it this time of year because cheaper rates for the venue rentals. But it's hot.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, the conference was crowded, but Vegas as a whole didn't seem to be too crowded. But let's talk a little bit about the conference itself. So Tuesday, actually, before it was Wednesday, Thursday was the actual conference. But Tuesday, I got to sit in on the Omdia, which is a research group. They had a day where they had all of their analysts kind of giving information about different topics and stuff. I know you were a former Gartner guy, right?
Yeah. We never did anybody else's third-party events, though. That was forbidden. So everybody else got to have fun. So.
Yeah, exactly. But this was an interesting one. Obviously, agentic AI and AI was the kind of the theme across all of it. But it was good to go in there and kind of hear their thoughts, because a lot of their thoughts are what I've been thinking of. So it kind of I felt good that I seem to be on the right path with the whole AI stuff and where things are going. One of the interesting ones that a lady from a U.S. government agency got up and was asking questions about, if you're going to come in and talk to me about AI, first and foremost, you better tell me if you're using DeepSeek as a model for your AI, because she goes, I can't talk to you, right? So it's kind of interesting to see the perspective of what's going on in this area. But they had a lot of good topics and a lot of good Q&A that went on during that day. So it was nice to be able to sit in and listen to what their analysts had to say. And I think it's probably pretty much the same across the different analyst groups that are out there.
Yeah, I like the Omdia. Actually, I like the Omdia team. They're pretty good at especially some of the forward-thinking stuff. So yeah, it's a good.
Yeah, in fact, one of the analysts is a former trender, so I got to say hello to him and catch up with him and see how the family's going. That's one of the things I do like about these conferences, is get to see all the people that you've worked with over the years and who have moved on to other companies, for example, and you can catch up with them and see, because it's mostly social, right? That's the actual good part about these conferences, is the social aspect and catching up with old friends and colleagues.
Absolutely, yeah. It's funny how much Black Hat has changed, though. That now there's investors going, and there's vendors. As you mentioned, when back in when it started out, you could go. I couldn't go because you would lose your clearance if you went to Black Hat. Go to DEF CON, like you'd be arrested or something. But It was,
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little different. I think, like you said, I think, my impression of it, it was that was very kind of similar to RSA, maybe a little more technical. It seemed like
yeah,
a lot, looking through the program to see all the different talks that you could go to. A lot of them are quite technical. Like they're talking about a vulnerability that they discovered, and they go through the minutia of what what the vulnerability is and how it works, or they go into different attacks and stuff. So it was a little more. I think it's a little more of a technical audience than you get at RSA, and but obviously, they ran a good program. So the opening on Wednesday, got to go to the opening keynote, which is the founder, Jeff Moss, I think is the guy's name, who founded Black Hat and DEF CON. And so he came out and talked a little bit about what's going on from his perspective. And what I liked about what he did is he tried to keep it towards the human side,
right.
because we're seeing so much with AI happening now, and everybody's the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt around AI. Is it going to take my job, or is it going to do this? He tried to keep it more human-like, and what was going on, what's going on humanly. One thing he did say that was interesting, and we should deep dive into this a little bit, Greg, is he said tech is now political. You can't get away from the political aspect of tech because tech is everywhere in the world. And so, like I mentioned with the government agency, right? If you're running the Chinese DeepSeek model, you can't even talk to them. They're not going to use your product because you're using a Chinese-based one. If you're you're trying to sell into a U.S. State. I had a lot of conversations with people from Europe who are going the opposite. They're like, if you're a US based cybersecurity firm, we don't want you. If you're a US based infrastructure company, we don't want you. We want sovereign data centers. We want sovereign AI. So that's going to be an interesting thing around the world, because it does seem to me that the world is shifting from this kind of a globalized world to one that's more sovereign based. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. And I think this is where historically cybersecurity, government, and education have always been highly separated. I think it's one of those cases where governments are becoming non-pluralistic about, what goes on, and becoming, not just political, but, party specific almost, or, ideological. The problem is real CISOs run multinational companies. So, if I've got, offices in Europe, I have offices here, I've got offices in Asia, how can you not use, one product?
Right.
Or competing needs when you got two of the constituent governments that you agree to abide by their laws, that you're going to be in conflict, and you're going to have to break somebody's rules. So you have to carve up your networks, and that just makes you more insecure. So if you have, two systems that are, instead of one, that's not unified, it just it's bad for security. It makes for good politics and good press, but who loses? The end users, the people who actually have to the defenders lose.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there. I don't know how you get around that, especially like you said, in the multinational companies. Maybe government agencies can do that, right? If you're, UK or US or Canada, for example, maybe you can do that. But still, it's been so globalized these days that I don't know how you get around that. Maybe on the data center side, you can start seeing sovereign data centers where they build those out. But if I'm running, like you said, if I'm running a security stack and I've got multiple products, we've found already that multiple products causes challenges, right? There's lack of visibility, lack of collaboration, coordination between all these different products. So it definitely, I think, like you said, I think the loser in that kind of game is going to be the defenders.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard enough, at least with compliance. You can have different compliance regimes you follow. So I can have GDPR, I can have NIST, I can have ones that are country specific. But if I have to start having sovereignty forced on me for my security, that's just bad business. And the moment like you said, you have more products, you're insecure because second product, twice as many vulnerabilities to manage immediately. So it's just, yeah, it's a lose-lose, especially when we want more attack surface visibility. Why would you expand your attack surface? So it's just, yeah, I think a lot of the people in charge of a lot of the policies that are going on right now haven't thought it out or be thoughtful. And this is where we lose out in international standards. It's just, yeah, these are quick. They're not thought out. A lot of these decisions, and yeah, it's making it tough.
Yeah, and then talking about AI, right? I know Europe is trying to lead the way on regulations around AI, and Meta's already said we're not going to comply with like 2 of the 5 areas, and so it's going to be a mess, unfortunately, until things work out. But the other thing that was interesting on Tuesday, I forgot to mention, there was an AI summit that happened prior to the main event
Right.
that we participated in, and that was really well attended, from what I understand. I did the Omdia, but others went to the AI summit and had a lot of talks around different aspects of AI and what's going on. Agentic was a big talk. As I walked the show floor, it's like every other booth was talking about using agentic AI in their products or services and so forth. So, but one of the themes, and I talked to a number of people about this, and everybody concurred that AI, that the speed with which technology is moving now is just incredible. With OpenAI coming out with models, they're saying 5 times a year they're going to upgrade their models, and all the different other AI companies, and they seem to be leapfrogging each other, right? One puts out a new version, and the next one jumps in their next version that has a little bit better capability. As a organization that's implementing AI, how do you deal with that kind of situation where, do I stick with the open AI model, or do I go to keep jumping around to the latest and greatest version? I don't know. What do you think around that?
Yeah, I think when you look at AI, you have to categorize it into what it really is. Is this going to be, a target that can be attacked? Is this something that's a threat? And, is it something the bad guys are going to use? Well, it's going to be all 3. But what can I do about that? Well, number 1 is policy. I hate to say that, what a nerd security thing to say, but it's true. Like, and you do the same roundtable as I do, just in different parts of the country. And I always get 1 out of 20 hands who has a security policy regarding AI right now. So I think, yeah, the tech is moving quick. Hopefully, it is kind of plateauing in some ways, but you just got to get your hands around the basics of it and just start to put some common sense rules in there and some guidance for people. It's a reality. It's here. It's now. It's like how it was, like everything before, like the internet, right? When that came in, and it's just going to be policy, and have to just and have to work with it. Agentic is a different beast, I think, because it's effectively like a remote Trojan or a remote access Trojan almost that we're installing willingly. So, but what we haven't seen in the regulations is guidance on cybersecurity.
Right.
There's great stuff on ethics, all this stuff. But there's these regulations, they just say be secure. So I take comfort in that I'm not going to be forced into doing crazy things by regulations unless they come up with some really crazy ones. But so far, they've kind of left security alone because it's hard. So, and it's not a headline grabber.
Well, and I think a lot of people aren't even, as we've seen with all new technology, security seems to be the afterthought, not the forethought, unfortunately. So, maybe they'll get there, but hopefully the industry figures it out before regulations have to actually be imposed, right? And that's usually when regulations get imposed because somebody doesn't do something that they should have done, beforehand. So I'm helpful that the industry, like we're part of COSI, which is one of the groups that is trying to come up with ways to be, make it more secure and private and all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully the industry can put those things together beforehand and implement this stuff beforehand before it has to get regulated.
Yeah, I take encouragement too that a lot of the sort of government committees I work on where there is, multi vendors there and not just security ones. It's the security people from these general purpose, software vendors, the cloud providers, the operating system vendors, and they're as frustrated as we are. So, they're part of that organization creating, general purpose AI, but they're facing the same frustrations trying to give hang on, we haven't thought out the security part yet. We should really spend some time on this before we ship.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, so Thursday was the second day of the show, and I went to the keynote, which was Nicole Perleroth.
Oh
Know her? She was a New York Times cybersecurity reporter for many years, I think 12 years or something. And
yeah.
so she came up, and she's with VC, I think now. But in any case, she talked about a lot of the history of what she did as a thing. But one statement that she made that hit home with me, Greg, because it ties into trend quite a bit. She said, "We're no longer trying to secure your business or your PC. We are trying to ensure the security of civilization." And that hit me because, as we mentioned earlier, tech is getting into everything that we do as a species, right? It's in our homes, it's in our cars, it's in our classrooms, it's in our workplaces, and it runs everything. And so, and if people don't realize, Trend's mission statement, which we've had since, for 35 years, is to make the world safe for exchanging digital information. And I highlight the words "making the world safe," because that's where I think, we've always talked about what's our mission as cybersecurity defenders, right? And it's to defend our networks from adversaries. But the adversaries are starting to get into areas of our lives, and can impact our lives pretty badly, with critical infrastructure attacks and things, and cyber warfare happening right now with Ukraine and Russia and stuff. So that hit home with me because it gives you a different perspective, and it actually helps you kind of get up in the morning and go to work because you realize that what you're doing has purpose. And
Yeah.
I think that really hit home with me.
Yeah, it's so true. The really wacky thing, though, is that it's all the vendors who are saying this, and it's not, governments. Governments right now are just not, seeing it this way, and it's very true. And we've had great threats before. We've had Y2K. We've had COVID. What happened around the and other great technology outages. Yeah, this is pretty ubiquitous stuff now, and encouragingly behind the scenes, there is a lot of cooperation. But just this week, MITRE attack, backing off. That's another story we can cover. CISA under budget pressure. Like, never has there been a time for more leadership in exactly this area, because it affects everything. We all want this stuff to work. Nobody wins if it breaks.
Right.
So yeah, no, that's a really really thought provoking session. I bet.
Yeah. And what I'm hopeful for is, looking, like I said, going around the show floor and stuff, you're just seeing all the investment that the defenders are making in improving. And that's what we're trying to do all the time, is improve and make things better. But yeah, it was, so it's an exciting time. Am I going to go back to Black Hat, Greg? I'm not sure. I might let the younger generation start doing the shows more. If I get a keynote or I get a talk or something, I'll definitely go. But I haven't pushed for that, so I try to just be in the background if I can.
RSA is like the CISO track, and Black Hat is almost like the the soccer technical track now of a giant world conference. So
yeah, exactly. So, but so good discussion. Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience?
No, and I really like the one sort of interesting thing from our CEO has been, if you just do good things, try to secure stuff, and the business will all the competitiveness and that will go to the side. You take care of that. So if you do good things for your customers, try to secure them. Only good things will come from that. It makes life really simple if you follow that. So instead of trying to get caught down in these rat holes or distractions of hyper competitiveness or we were first or whatever, just do good things like that. So, and that's, I think that's the way of the world. And maybe this stress coming from a lack of sort of regulation, governance, cooperation, will make us work even harder and do better. So,
yeah. And, I take home, Omdia came out with some predictions like by 2030, I think they said, or 2028. Cybersecurity investments will be around 450 billion a year. To me, that just says there's a lot of room for everybody right now. So, not really, as Eva, our CEO, always says, our competition isn't, the CrowdStrikes or the Microsofts of the world. It's the adversaries themselves. It's the
Exactly
threat
right.
actors out there, right? And if we keep that in mind and we just keep pushing forward, I think we're all going to be good. So, hey, if you haven't been to Black Hat, I do recommend at least going once in your life, just to experience it and see what it's like. Vegas, though, in August in my opinion, isn't the greatest place in the world, but which is probably why I never really go. But enjoy out there. And, Greg and I will be back in a couple of weeks for another episode. Feel free to give us a like or give us a comment. If there's a topic you want us to cover in one of our next editions, we'd love to do that. So everybody, thanks for listening in today, and we'll be back soon. Greg, great discussion. Appreciate it.
Hey, and welcome home, John. Great to see you again.
You bet. Bye-bye.